Okay, this is another Rant and Random Thoughts video. I think it's number 27 in the order. Now, I will say there was no sit rep for the Russian invasion of Ukraine for last week. That was because I was busy. I was doing some canning. And also I'm doing preparations on my garden so that I can start planting next week. So I've been going through tilling and burying refuse from last year, all the usual fun stuff for preparation for the new garden. Now, things I want to talk about in this video, I do not have a list written out of things for me to rave and rant about. There are a few things in the news that have been ticking me off that we'll probably get to. But first off here, I want to say thank you to all of you that gave me ideas for future videos. You guys have no idea how hard it is to come up with content, especially on a weekly basis, and when you're trying to put out more than one video a week. You rack your brain a lot. You got to come up with the idea, then you got to research it a lot of the times, find out what additional information you need to know to include in it, and so forth. Now, I got some, just a few things I pulled from the suggestions. Most of these are from over at YouTube, and some of them are from my patrons over at Patreon. Reminder to everyone, if you like what I do at the channel, you can become a patron over at Patreon. I have it set that you can donate as little as $1 a month, which is like 3 cents a day. Or you can do a symbolic thing if you want to donate $17.76 or $7.62 or $5.56, whatever you so choose. Patreon does allow you to customize your donations. And as I've said in the past, the money that comes from it, I use to try to purchase training aids that get used in the materials or in the videos. And I also try to purchase additional gear items to have on hand for passing out to people that may need gear if anything truly bad happens in this country. And I also use the money to purchase supplies, primarily food and medical, for emergencies to have on hand. Now, the first batch of ideas here come from a subscriber over on YouTube called Young Constitutionalist. The first one I want to talk about here is he'd like to see me do some build videos on trenches and bunkers. He primarily wants comments about the stuff that he sees in Ukraine with the trenches there. Now, trenches and bunkers are subjects I want to cover in videos. I've tried doing bunker video a couple times, and each time something always went wrong during the construction that we had to scrap the entire idea. One example on this is a couple years ago, I tried upgrading the World War II German slit trench to a bunker. Well, I started digging out the area and I started getting a depth, and before I got down to the depth I wanted to be, so that there was room underneath the overhead cover that you could walk around inside this below ground bunker, it started to flood. And I cleared out the water, started digging a little deeper, and it filled with water again. I found out that it was high groundwater in that area, so that canceled that one. I've tried a few other times, few other spots, and there was always issues that came up. Another time I did it, we picked an area, we figured it would be isolated, it would cause no problems with water table or anything. Well, then it turned into, basically Grand Central Station. People were moving all through the area, so then we had to finish up, cancel the whole thing, fill the stuff back in, and then when people are out of the area, pull out the sandbags and the tools and all that stuff and scratch that one completely. But that is in the order. I do want to get to it. I just have to find the right spot, and then I have to make sure I have the materials for the particular type of bunker I want to build. Now, I'm not just talking a covered trench, a covered fighting position. I'm talking an actual bunker that someone could fight from and sleep and live in. That style of bunker. Now, as for trenches, there are two main types that I want to do in videos. The first one is World War II German trenches, which were kind of an improvement to the World War I ones. They made them more narrower, not quite as deep, but still plenty deep to fight from. You know, they put better angles and that stuff in them. That is a trench system I want to do to show as an example of how to do it correctly. The other type of trench I want to do in a video is World War I American improvements. Before the United States entered World War I, we did a lot of experimentation on trenches in the United States and how to improve them. Well, when the engineers from the U.S. Army went to Europe, we brought those improvement ideas with us, along with a lot of the materials to make those improvements. And the trenches we ended up in Europe, we tried to improve them as best we could during the time we were involved in the war. There was things like drainage improvements, revetments, and all that type of stuff. That's the type of thing I want to concentrate on in that particular video. Once again, it comes out to the trench videos has to be done in an area where I can do it, not get disturbed. No one's going to come across it, because it will take a few days to build the stuff before I can do the video pointing everything out. Now, another thing Young Constitutionalist asked for is possibly a video on the Panzerfaust. The Panzerfaust is the granddaddy of disposable anti-tank rocket systems along the lines of your Law rocket. This is something that is a concept that also is very popular inside the militia movement, because they were very, very easy to make, very easy to produce. The German military or the German war industry was producing them right up to the last day of the war, right up to the surrender. They produced millions of them. And reportedly, a lot of the designs were so crude, so easy to assemble, that they were able to be assembled in essentially, you know, small town workshops down the street as the advancing militaries were getting closer. There is a lot of talk about these on militia forums, and a lot of people, some people will get involved discussing them. A lot of people won't, because they're worried about the potential legality on even talking about it. Well, you can talk about it. It's when you actually make one that becomes the issue. There are some books out there that go into depth talking about their construction, on how they were made. You know, gives you translated diagrams and that stuff. Those are out there. And even those books are debated in the militia also, because there's kind of the thought that maybe these books are essentially a new version of the anarchist cookbook, which means the design is deliberately messed with so it will explode in your face, injuring you if you try doing it. And then there's others that say, well, maybe it's a good design, but this is something that was put out by the feds to try to catch people potentially making this stuff, you know, gathering the materials for it, and they'll try making a case against you, send you to federal prison, and all kinds of stuff. There's always a debate about Panzerfausts in the militia. Now, should I think the militia make them if something were to occur? Yes, I think you should. Because this would be a game changer on the battlefield. Being able to produce, home produce, anti-tank or anti-armor rockets, disposable rockets that could be used against an enemy's patrol vehicles, that is a game changer. That is a combat multiplier that a guerrilla definitely needs. Now, would I do a video, or could I do a video on this? I know I could, There's a lot of information out there on some stuff that's come out historically over the last couple of years here for translations and stuff, and also explanations in museums and stuff, people showing the actual preserved examples of the original ones explaining the stuff. If I do ever do that video, it will not be posted over at YouTube, okay? Historic Ordinance videos are typically posted over at BitChute, and then I debate about should I post them over at YouTube. That particular video would not be posted at YouTube. Now, Young Constitutionalist also asked for more identification videos on APCs, infantry fighting vehicles, tanks, and MRAPs. Yes, that is in the plan. I do want to do those, but the research on them takes a while. I still have some of the material for one I was working on for identifying Chinese main battle tanks. I keep changing how I want to come about it, what I want to point out in the videos, not just the identification, but how could you potentially handle it and that type of stuff. So that one keeps getting put to the side while I debate, what I want the final product to look like. Young Constitutionalists asked about a video on the RPG-7 explaining how to use it. I don't think I need to do a video on that because there are some really good videos on the RPG-7. If you look under my playlists option over on YouTube, you're going to see one that's anti-tank weapons. Go under that. There's 2 videos in there you should watch to learn about the RPG-7, and it will teach you all the information you need to know to use an RPG-7. The first video is by Ian McCullum over at Forgotten Weapons. He did a very long and in-depth video on the RPG-7 launcher. He explains how it's used, how to load it, all of that. He even explains how to use the training aid round that you were supposed to use when you get trained on it to qualify on it in a military. Now, there's also another video in there that's from the U.S. Army from during the Vietnam War, explaining the capabilities and how to use the RPG-2 and the RPG-7. If you want to find out anything on the RPG-7, watch those 2 videos, and I guarantee you're going to be pretty proficient with it. You're going to have a very good understanding that you could take an RPG-7 if needed and employ it against an enemy easily. Now, another question he asked, which will not be a video, I'm going to mention this now, is languages. He was wondering what types of what foreign languages should people in the militia movement or the survivalist movement learn in case there is some type of invasion or police state scenario, globalist takeover, the Antichrist New World Order system, that type of thing. Languages is something that usually gets brought up in the militia quite a bit, and this is a subject that gets debated quite a bit. Languages that I think would be very beneficial for militiamen to learn at least a basic on, so that you could give some basic commands for ordering surrenders, moving prisoners, understanding them talking during intelligence briefings, that type of stuff. First off, I would say would be Spanish, because it is a very common language in the third world, and any type of United Nations operation inside North America, you could expect Spanish-speaking troops or Spanish-speaking invaders, so on and so forth. The next language I think you should definitely learn, or people should learn, is French. That is also an extremely common language, just like Spanish. There's a lot of third country nations around the world that French is their primary language. Another language that I think should be a bit higher priority, but this is a more advanced one, is Mandarin Chinese. From my understanding, that is the most common dialect in Chinese. There's not one single Chinese language. There's multiple dialects, multiple versions of it. And I believe Mandarin is the official language of the Chinese government and the Chinese People's Liberation Army. Do some research, find out for sure. That would probably be a language you would want to learn also. Other languages I think you should probably try learning would be Arabic, because once again, third world countries, you could see them used as quote-unquote peacekeepers, in any type of situation. It's very common. Another language that I think would be beneficial to learn would be Russian. Russian is actually an easier language, I've heard, for people to learn. And the reason for that is because of the proliferation of Russian equipment. That primarily. So that way you could understand training videos that are posted out there online on how to use Russian equipment. You could potentially read Russian manuals to understand how to use the stuff. It would be a beneficial language to have. But I think those other ones that I gave you first, those are the areas you should primarily concentrate on, especially those first three: Spanish, French, and Mandarin Chinese. Now, another question we have here from Sparta270, and this is from over at Patreon. He asked about ordinance terms and basic handling procedures. That is an extremely broad subject, and I'm not even sure how to tackle that for a video, so I don't think I'm going to get to that one. Another one he asked about is physical training or physical fitness. I've thought on that, and I might be able to put together a video on that, but keep in mind, I was never a master fitness trainer in the military. I was not a person who could score a 300 or higher on a PT test. I don't go to the gym every day like I used to. I can come up with some ideas for someone to come up with their program and potentially evaluate themselves in their own program. So that might be a video that could potentially be coming out sometime in the next few months, when I don't know. I just got to figure out how to tackle it. Another request is from Ron Stryker from over on YouTube. And his primarily, with Ron Stryker, if you're not subscribed to his channel, I suggest you go over there and subscribe. He does a really good in-depth dive into his videos. His videos are militia/survivalist related. And I highly recommend you include him on your channel list. He does not produce a lot of videos. He produces maybe 1 or 2 videos a month. He hasn't produced any for a few months here. And from what I found out, that is because he seriously injured his back in December at his job. He's been dealing with it. I think he told me he was going to have to go through surgery. I don't know. And my guess is he's now at a point where he's ready. He wants to start doing videos again. And he's going to do simple ones first. And it looks like he wants to cover primarily, at least in the start here, canteen cup cooking. So he was asking me for ideas on that one. Now I'll put out here the one question he asked me that I can definitely answer right now in this video is, what food do I think would be available post-event, post-invasion, post-collapse? Now keep in mind, manufactured processed foods are not going to last forever. Eventually, in a post-collapse scenario, things are either going to have to restart again, producing more food for everyone, or you are just going to have to jump into producing your own. And that is potentially an area I might cover in some future videos here too. But food items for Ron Stryker that I think you could potentially see would be more common in a post-collapse or post-invasion scenario. First off, the survivalist basics of rice and beans. Survivalists stock a large amount of that. There's always a lot of that in stores. And most people in the United States, they don't cook with that stuff anymore. And there's always good stocks of that in the stores. But when people start freaking out and they start stocking up, that's when they remember beans and rice. Another thing that I think would be you could see in canteen cup cooking is some basic pastas. Things like spaghetti noodles, ramen noodles, and elbow macaroni. If you can prepare that stuff in a canteen cup, you can pretty much prepare any of the other types of pastas that are out there in a canteen cup setting. Other common things that I think you would see in canteen cup cooking in a survival situation is obviously, first off, fish, which would be easier to get. Wild, small game. Don't concentrate on the big stuff because you have to preserve the meat. Unless you had the capabilities to do that, you're just wasting it. So concentrate more on your small game. Your squirrels, your rabbits, your rats, dogs. I know people don't like hearing that one, but guess what? A lot of people around the world eat dog for a reason, okay? And it's supposed to be pretty good, especially barbecued. I'm not joking on that one. I keep bringing that one up for a reason. Another thing that everyone should learn is the wild edibles in your area. What wild plants that grow around your area are edible that you can collect and eat? And I'm talking more than dandelions and plantains, wild blueberries, wild raspberries. You know, what other plants are out there? You'd be surprised on the weeds that grow in just your yard alone that are actually edible, that you can actually use to either make for food or to use to make medicinal teas. So study that stuff and, you know, maybe start including that in there. I think I put out a suggestion years ago that militias, when you do your field exercises at least once a year, maybe you should include in there during summertime or springtime when the wild edibles are coming out and they're at their peak. Include that in your field exercises as a block of training, you know, for that 1 hour, 2 hours, whatever it is, gathering the stuff, identifying the stuff, and then preparing it and eating it. And include that as part of the meal or the meal for that part of that day in the exercise. Now, that's the list of ones I just pulled from the suggestions. Were there more? Yes. Quite a few of the suggestions that people gave me will probably end up being videos. Some of them won't, either because other people have already covered the subject and I know they've done a really good job at it. A lot better than I could do, like with the RPG-7. But I could potentially, if I can get a hold of a deactivated RPG-7, maybe I'll do a video related to it, but it won't necessarily be on arming and firing. Maybe it'll be on ambushes with an RPG-7. You know, what's the minimum arming distances? How far away should you be? That type of thing. You know, maybe that'll appear in a video someday. That could be a year or 2 years from now. Who knows? So, okay, current time, I got 24 minutes. So, now we'll get into some of the things that have been ticking me off, that have been annoying me, that has been happening in the news. Now, from this point forward, be forewarned, if you haven't come to this channel much, you haven't seen the Rant and Random Thoughts videos, foul language is common and it does pop out when you least expect it. So if you have petite ears, weak ears, you know, they'll start bleeding when you hear a cuss word, you might want to go somewhere else now. Now, the first thing I want to cover is something that's really been pissing me off, is the stuff that we're seeing in the news where they are defending teachers in public schools grooming young children. Have we degraded so much as a society now where that is now considered acceptable? Where grooming small kids is allowable. I mean, 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, if you found out about a teacher was trying to sexualize the children in their classroom, even one kid, not the entire class, that teacher was removed from that position. They were fired by that school district. They were arrested by the police. They were brought up on charges for potential molestation or actual molestation. Investigation ensued. The person went to the court. You know, they were registered in a sex offender program if they were found guilty on charges. And then that person was barred from ever serving as a teacher ever again. But here we are, 2022, and it's considered allowable that this sick fucking mentality, these sick sons of bitches, and what they fucking are trying to do to kids, literally trying to teach them that it's okay for that teacher to fuck them, is acceptable? What the hell is wrong with our society that this has happened? Have we turned so far from God, and I don't care what your God is, there's only one religion I'm aware of out there that actually promotes or allows the molestation of children, and that's Satanism. Every other religion, well, kind of questionable when it comes to Islam, but every other religion, that is a severe no. That is a sin. That is a transgression. You do not do that. You do not harm small children, and that is what you are doing. I don't give a fuck if, well, you're just trying to broaden their horizons. You're just trying to show them what's out there, what's acceptable. You know what? The kids that are in your classroom are not your fucking kids. Those kids belong to the parents of that child or guardian of the child. They are the one that makes the determination on what to teach that child on that subject. Not you. Especially if that child is a kindergartner. What the fuck is wrong with the people in the Democratic Party and Hollywood and all these other fucking leftists in the United States that want kindergartners to be taught sex and to be shown every gory detail, every explicit procedure, every explicit detail on the act, and not just regular heterosexual. They want to teach the homosexual. They want to teach the other side of the coin, if you want to think of it that way. Stuff that gets into the fetish stuff. Okay, this goes along with the drag queen story hour. Who the fuck came up with this stupid idea? Adult men in lingerie reading stories to little kids. Who thought that that is appropriate? Seriously. Whoever is allowing that in your libraries, allowing that in your schools, must be removed immediately, and they seriously should be investigated to find out if this person is a kid sniffer. I'll just do that, since we can't say the P word, because the P word is fucking protected on YouTube. Yes, YouTube actually protects kid sniffers. If you post any derogatory comment about kid sniffers, your videos get taken down. You get a strike. What the hell is wrong with our society that we allow this, that this is now fucking acceptable? Seriously, what is wrong with this? What is wrong with our society? And to go along with this, the same people that want to allow that will protest about that. These same people are also ones that want and advocate for post-birth abortion. Okay, understand this. If the child has already been born, they are breathing, they're surviving on their own, it's no longer an abortion, it's fucking murder. Okay, plain and simple. All this debate about, oh, the Supreme Court is going to strike down Roe versus Wade. Oh, there's not going to be abortions anymore. They're not going to be allowed. No, you fucking idiots. Reportedly, what's going to come out in the ruling on this is they're going to kick it back to the states and say that the individual states can make that decision. So if you're in a state that does not allow abortion at the particular term you are in a pregnancy, I guarantee you're going to find another state that does. And no, there's not going to be checkpoints on every highway trying to capture every teenage girl who's trying to go to have an abortion. That's not going to fucking happen. All right? It won't. Fucking leftists. Quite frankly, I'm to the point now where leftists in the United States should be treated the same way as I think the Nazis and neo-Nazi fuckheads in Ukraine should be treated. Lined up on the side of a ditch, bullet put in them, dumped in a fucking ditch, and then a bulldozer come over and cover them fucking dirt. Because I really don't even think these people are human anymore. I think they're bordering on the line of just, they're demonically possessed to want this shit. Sacrifice children, and that's what it is. Abortion is child sacrifice. Now, don't start posting stupid comments about, oh, what about the girl who's raped? Or what about the girl who gets pregnant from incest? Okay, I'll give that to you. I think it should be allowed for that. But I also think there should be a limit as to how late in a pregnancy an abortion should or could be performed. Kind of try to figure out the wording on that. Could be performed, should be performed. I think there needs to be very strict criteria in any law concerning abortions as to when it can occur. Because guess what? There's other things you can do with that child. You can give birth to that child. You can give it up for adoption. Literally, when you are in the maternity ward, you've just given birth, you can tell the staff right there, the nurses and the doctor, you do not want to see the child. I want to give the child up for adoption. They will follow your wishes. They will remove the child from the room. They will do the immediate post-birth care that they're able to do, and they will have you sign the paperwork for you to give up that child for adoption. That child will go to an adoption agency and will be adopted by a good family. There is very, very stringent criteria when it comes to adoption of who can adopt a child. And it's that way for a reason. Because they don't want to be essentially selling children to whoever has the money, and then that child disappears, and then that couple comes back for another one who also disappears, and you got to wonder what's happening to those kids. All right? If you don't want to have an abortion, you can put the child up for adoption. If you've gone past the date for being able to legally have the abortion, you can still give the child up for adoption. Hell, after the child is born, if you decide you can't handle taking care of the child, you can put the child up for adoption. Okay? You don't have to go out there and have your child murdered. You don't have to. That is not your only goddamn option, but that is literally what we are teaching young girls nowadays, is that murdering that child is the only option. And fuck you, YouTube heroes who are going to say that it's not murder. Yes, it is. You're ending a human life. The human heartbeat starts, what is it, like 4 weeks? Less than that? 2 weeks? I'm not even sure. I know it's really early in the pregnancy now that a heartbeat can be detected. And once that fetus, that embryo, whatever you want to describe it as, has its own heartbeat, guess what? It is its own separate being. It is its own separate human being. It is no longer just a piece of the mother that she's decided she wants cut out and removed. Fuck's sakes. Now, next area I want to get into is these mass shootings. Okay? As soon as these started happening and the frequency that they've been happening over the past few weeks, you know, sirens started going off, the red lights started flashing inside my house, you know, warning, warning, something's going on here. Now, how many of these are actual mass shootings of people going nuts and doing it without any type of outside influence? I don't know. That really, when people have checked into it, that type of mass shooting is actually really rare. What is usually seen in mass shootings is what is referred to as a wind-up toy. This is very, very common, and it happens a hell of a lot more than people realize. And what a wind-up toy is this is someone who is mentally deficient or intellectually deficient. So someone with a severe learning disability or severe intellectual degradation, a person who typically is not supposed to be on their own. Okay, they're supposed to be under the care of a guardian. This happens a lot. Yes, I understand. There's the loner that goes out and does it too. But even there, you can kind of see that there's usually mental deficiency going on. Their thought processes don't fully work. Now, a wind-up toy is someone that law enforcement agencies identify as someone they can use. So in that situation, they'll send in an agent or a instigator into the situation, get them in contact with the target. And then they start to radicalize that target. They start pushing them towards that direction of getting a specific outcome. That outcome could be doing a terrorist attack, setting off a bomb, or shooting up a place. And then they supply the means and the training for that to happen. And at the right time, they activate that person, if you want to think of that way. Think of it that way. They take that person, they wind up the key on the back, point them in the direction where to go. They've literally planned out the operation for them, told them what to do, and they send them out. This has been seen time and 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 time again with mass shooters. We've seen it with instigators in the militia. Most of the terrorist plots, if not all of them, that have been busted since 9/11 have turned out to be fed operations with wind-up toys or just plain setups. You know, it's fucking ridiculous. Now, Kaz over at Fourth Dimension, he linked to an article not long after the first few mass shootings happened a few weeks ago. In that article was a story of a young man, I think it was like 18 to 20. He was mentally disabled, okay? He could not live on his own. He had to live with his parents. This man was identified by the FBI, it looks like, as a potential target to use. So they sent in an instigator. The instigator befriended the kid, the young man, and then started radicalizing him, getting him psyched up on the stuff. They performed training with him to get him ready to do the particular mission that they were planning for him. And they also supplied the materials, the weapons, the ammunition, and materials for making a bomb. Now, the parents did not like the instigator. They told this instigator to stay away from their son, told him that he cannot be around him, that he's a bad influence, and so forth. This instigator ignored the parents, and it sounds like under orders of the FBI, went around their backs, still talked to the son, still stoked him up to get him ready to do an event that they could either allow to happen, that could be exploited politically, or that they could come in, stop them at the last minute, and justify their funding. Well, the parents talking to their son pieced together what was going on. So what they did, they went to a judge. They got a court order barring the instigator from seeing their son. They also sent a court order to the FBI instructing them to stay away from their son. They then broke this information to the media. Now, the mainstream media did not cover this story, but it did appear in independent media and alternative media. They talked about it there. They gave the details of the situation, who was involved, ages, what was planned to happen. Reportedly, they wanted this mentally disabled young man to bomb a bank, and it sounded like shoot some places up also. They were winding him up, turning the key, getting him ready to point him in a direction and have him go commit domestic terrorism. This is extremely common. It happens a lot. Most people are not aware of that. People in the militia movement are aware of it because we see this type of crap happen all the time. We constantly deal with instigators. We constantly deal with infiltration by law enforcement agencies. Some militias have gone the route of being out in the open, allowing the media to come in. You know, they don't have a problem with the law enforcement coming in and investigating what they're doing and so forth. Well, those militias ultimately end up getting torn apart and people still arrested anyway for real bullshit fucking charges. How should you deal with instigators and infiltrators? That's up to you. But whatever decision you come up with, you got to live with it. Just keep that in mind. Now, we got 41 minutes here, so I'm going to take another drink. Now, the next area that's pissing me off. With the mass shootings that are going on, there's two outcomes that I see that they're trying to push for here. Always remember, when the globalists do an operation, they have more than one outcome, more than one goal that they are trying to push for at the same time. If they get all those goals, that's a huge win for them. If they only get one of the goals or two of the goals, that's still a win for them. Now, with the mass shootings, obviously we're seeing pushes for banning body armor. Why? I don't know. It's a protective item, but they're trying to say now in the media that only mass shooters use body armor. That is not true, but they're trying to push for bans on body armor now. We're obviously seeing the push again for banning of firearms, on how people shouldn't have privately owned firearms, that only law enforcement should have them. We're an evolved society, so on and so forth. But the same fucking people that want to take away your right to own a firearm are the same sons of bitches that want us to send even more money, more weapons to Ukraine so every single civilian in Ukraine can be armed. But you here in the United States are not supposed to be able to be armed. Go figure that one out, and I want someone to fucking explain that to me. I want one of you leftist sacks of shit that are watching this video. Explain that to me. Why is it you want the citizens of the United States disarmed, but you want every person in Ukraine, to include children, to be armed? Explain that to me. If anything, the war in Ukraine shows the reason why you want an armed population. Seriously. I want one of you leftists, explain that to me. Explain that fucking hypocrisy to me. Why do you want the American people disarmed, but you want Ukrainian civilians armed? Tell me your justification on this. I want to hear. I really fucking do. Now, another goal that I think is going on with these mass shootings is they're trying to influence the people in the United States to vote a certain way in the upcoming ice cream social that we're going to have in a few months here. That's another area that we're not allowed to talk about on YouTube without getting strikes and bans. You can't even talk about ice cream socials, and yes, I'm using a different term than the actual thing, that will be happening in early November. Now, if you think the outcome for 2022 will be any different than it was 2 years ago, where we had 80 million scoops of ice cream for Mr. Potato Head, do you think it's going to be any fucking different this year? I guarantee it's not. I think this whole fucking thing that we had with the quote-unquote Voting Rights Act, that was a complete takeover by the federal government of every election down to dog catcher in your county and town. I think we were given the quote-unquote win on that one, the defeat of the Voting Rights Act, to keep us passive, to make us think that the ice cream socials are actually controlled by us and not controlled by people who are putting extra ice cream cones inside the box when people aren't looking. Or putting a new bucket of ice cream in the cooler in the middle of the night after everyone gets sent home because they say, okay, we're closed for the night, we'll pick up in the morning. And if you have half a brain, you understand what I'm talking about here. I think November is going to be a fucking farce. And I think it will be a landslide. It will not be a Republican landslide. Truthfully, the party doesn't fucking matter. You need to get off of the whole, oh, they're a Democrat, they're a Republican. You need to look at what they fucking stand for, how they voted in the past. What do they post on social media? What is their stance on constitutional rights? Not just what they tell you in the speech. What have they done to show that they back them up? How have they voted? Who supports them? Who is sending them money? You need to be well informed about every server at the Ice Cream Social. You don't want to pick any server who is bought and paid for by the globalists, who is nothing but a controlled fucking shill. And guess what? 95%, if not 99% of the candidates that are going to appear on that menu that they're going to give you in November is a controlled fucking shill. So in actuality, it doesn't matter if you vote for the person with an R by their name or a D by their name or someone that has communist by their name. They all report to the same fucking people. What's the old saying on that? Republican and Democrat are two sides of the same coin, and it doesn't matter. What matters is the person that's flipping that coin, rolling it between their fingers, not the person that's on that side, that face of the coin. Think about that. Keep that in mind. Am I going to vote in November? I haven't made that decision yet. Because I've already seen in-your-face fucking election fraud in my area. I've seen ballots appear out of nowhere in the middle of the night. I've seen people being pushed into the line and being given a menu and told that, oh, they can get themselves another serving even though they already did in another state the day before or even that morning. And these kids were so stupid they fucking admitted it to a person that's in charge of that ice cream shop and allowed it to happen. November will be a farce. There'll be ice cream slung all over the damn place. And people are going to be getting not just 2 scoops and 3 scoops. People are going to be getting 50 scoops and 100 scoops. Hey, if you want to understand how that type of stuff may have happened a couple years ago, go over to BitChute, type in 2,000 mules. Now, is that all inclusive about everything that happened at the last ice cream social? Hell no. But just watch it and give it some thought. That type of thing has been going on for a very, very long time. And it's not just one group of servers that does it. Both groups do it. It's just the one group is a lot better at it. But in the end, it doesn't matter because both groups of servers still work for that same manager who's back in that shop. Now, another thing that's been ticking me off is the shortages that are currently going on. These shortages are being done on purpose, okay? It's to cause panic. Are there actual food shortages going on? Yes, but it is artificial. There is talk that some of this stuff is being produced in enough quantities that there should be no shortages in your stores, no shortages with your businesses. But the supply shipments are being diverted. This same thing has happened in the past. For those of us that have been in the survivalist movement for a long time, we've seen this type of thing before. We've seen it over the years where weird things would disappear from the market, like a particular type of biodegradable toilet paper, a septic tank safe toilet paper that degraded very quickly in a septic system. There was, I think it was 2008, 2010, there was a particular brand of menstrual pad mentioned on survivalist forums that was disappearing from stores. And this particular type of menstrual pad was also biodegradable. You know, once it was thrown in the trash, it broke down very quickly. That disappeared. We've seen freeze-dried foods and preserved foods and bulk food items disappear mysteriously from the market at many times over the years. When people have checked into it, they usually find out that the plant that produces the stuff or plants that produce the stuff are going full bore. They're producing as much as they can, but it's not showing up on the market because it's being bought up by government contracts. Just like we've seen with ammunition under Obama. Remember that one, the ammo apocalypse? When the federal government was essentially buying up every single round of ammunition made by every manufacturer? This stuff happens. It happens on a regular basis. It's just right now, just like in 2020, they are essentially buying huge quantities of everything. Now, where does this stuff go? For those of you that do not know, there is underground storage facilities. These have existed since the Cold War. These are a fact. This is not a conspiracy theory. You can do the searches for them online. Hell, there's even videos that truck drivers have done of them hauling in their loads into these facilities. And they hide the cameras when they go past the guard shacks. When they know there's a security camera up ahead, they hide the camera down low. And once they're past the security camera, they pull their camera back out and they show you the inside of these tunnel systems. They go to a particular door of a numbered door inside that tunnel. They back up to it. You know, they call it out on the radio, you know, door 20 occupied, whatever they're told to do. And people inside that warehouse open up the back of the trailer from inside. They empty out the load, close everything back up, and they get told, okay, you're complete, you may leave. And then they get their paperwork signed at the guard shack as they're going out. Okay? That stuff is actually going on. They're stocking up right now for some reason. Why? I don't know. I have a feeling, and I've mentioned this during the live streams, that there does seem to be a set timeline, a set event that the globalists, that their government minions are building for. And that date is getting close, and they're not at the levels that they wanted to be at before they hit that date. And they're rushing everything to get everything in position, all the ducks in a row, all the groundwork laid before that event, before that date occurs. What is that event? I have no clue. That is, you know, your guess is as good as mine. But to me, it seems like they want everyone hungry. They want everyone desperate. They want everyone disarmed. They want everyone turning their back on God. You know, and the only outcome I can think of for justifying that would be you're trying to do some type of massive takeover, the Antichrist system takeover type thing. I don't know for certain, okay? Any theory is pretty much plausible. For all I know, it's going to be a fucking alien invasion. I have no idea. But it seems like they are preparing, getting everything set for a particular date, a particular event. How long out till that is, I don't know. It could be a month, could be 2 months, could be 10 years. I have no clue. But everything seems to be speeding up. They're getting everything lined up. They're not even bothering to hide it anymore like they used to do it. It's all in the open. Are they pushing us towards a Mad Max scenario, a complete collapse of everything around the world? I don't know. Maybe with the way they're doing things, with the way they're stockpiling up, the way they're preparing. Maybe it's possible. Your guess is as good as mine. For all I know, in a couple years here, we're going to have a massive nuclear exchange of every country in the world launching at the exact same minute to bomb everybody. A fucking Terminator scenario. You know, Cyberdyne, you know, activating Skynet type thing. I don't know. But they seem to be pushing towards a set event in the future. And they're trying to get everything ready for that event. The event is getting close. They're getting nervous. And they're trying to speed up their preparations for it. That's what it really seems like to me. I suppose only time will tell. So what can we do about it then? Same as what we always do, what we always tell people. Prepare, stock up on those beans, stock up on that rice, stock up on those Band-Aids, stock up on those bullets. Learn how to grow your own food, how to process it for long-term storage. Learn how to smoke meats. Learn how to build a root cellar. Couldn't think of the word. Learn how to build a root cellar. Learn how to build a cold room in your basement for you to store stuff in there. Learn rodent control. How to keep the goddamn mice and rats and bugs out of your stuff. Okay? Learn all these skills. It doesn't matter if you're in the militia. You should learn this stuff also. You may be living in an apartment right now, but after things fall apart, you could find yourself helping out on a farm out in the country doing security for that farmer. And you may need to justify you being fed by helping out, helping preserve the crop, helping plant it, how to grow it, and all that. Okay? Learn as much survival skills as you can. How to can food, how to, smoke food, catch food, gather food, identify food, how to repair your own clothing, how to make your own clothing. Those are two skills a lot of people forget about. How to make and repair your own shoes and I'm burping here. Your own shoes and boots. Learn some basics. Research on this stuff. How to homeschool children, even if you don't have kids. Learn how to do it. Get some idea on the materials. Maybe gather up some books, especially if you live out in the country. Have the stuff on hand. Even if you're 60 years old, your kids are all grown up. Set some stuff to the side in a library so that your children can reference it. Or if you have to form your own new community, your own tribe out in the middle of the country, you have something to go off of. Research it. Seriously. Now, these are some videos that are going to be appearing soon. Battery's going out on my camera. Glove video, primarily pointing out some different things on the gloves so you don't make the wrong mistake, of picking the wrong type for a particular job. This is actually my mess gear that I have in my gear that I plan to use. I thought about it. I'm going to do a video on that stuff. On how to put the stuff together, what should you have in that. I also have planned potentially here in the next few weeks I will do a video on the basic items for in canning. What should you look for? What should you be gathering up? And then there's entire channels dedicated to how to can. I'm just going to show you some of the equipment, some of the things that are out there for options for you to consider if you get involved in it. Now, for all my engineer brothers in the Patriot and militia movements, always remember essayons.